Hey there, emerging expat! You're tuned in to Let's Move to Portugal. I'm Victoria from Expats Everywhere's podcast, and I have the distinct honor of bringing you, YouTube travelers, and our resident Portugal experts, Expats Everywhere's Josh and Kalie. Each week they'll inspire, they'll educate, and they'll accompany you on your journey to Portuguese residency. This week on Let's Move to Portugal, Josh and John McNerney discuss the various challenges and cultural differences faced by expats living in Portugal and the complexities of parenting in a foreign culture.
Hey expats and travelers alike, welcome back to Expats Everywhere Presents Let's Move to Portugal podcast. And Kalie, we are not in our studio.
No, we aren't. So if you're watching on YouTube, the podcast on YouTube, you can see video, which you'll see that we're, like you said, not in our studio. We are currently on a cruise.
Yes, we are. Don't know if you can actually tell by the background, but we are definitely on a cruise. We've got a window to our left, and it's given some funny lighting. But hey, we're just going to roll with it. Hopefully the sound is good too. Think it will be. We have an interview that we shot a while back, actually, and it's not timely, this interview. It's really a catch-up with somebody that we've had on the podcast before.
Right, so that audio will definitely be different than this. So if you're wondering, oh gosh, this is going to be bad for the whole hour, no, just stick with us for the next few minutes while we do our weekly welcome, and then we'll get into the interview.
Okay, so to let you know about the normal kind of cadence of our podcast, is we like to start out with an introduction from our producer Victoria, then we move into this portion that we call the weekly welcome, and then we get into like the main point of the podcast, like what you clicked on for, we hope. Although if you're someone that follows this podcast specifically, you know that we open up with this weekly welcome where we talk kind of in real time about what's happening in our week and what's been going on in the world of moving to Portugal. And currently, like literally currently as we are recording, Huge news is that there is a power outage that is affecting both Portugal and Spain. So by the time this comes out, that will be resolved.
Hopefully.
No, it will be, because I don't think that we're going to be able to get it up while the power outage is going on.
That is true. Good point.
So I got a message from our podcast producer, Victoria, the voice that you heard at the very beginning of this podcast. And she's like, yeah, don't know if I'm going to be able to get this thing out on Tuesday because of the outage. So if you're hearing it like
delayed
live on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, whatever it is, it's because of that.
Yes, hopefully this week, of course, but it could be delayed. Normally we put stuff out on Tuesdays, but We'll see how it goes, because we were speaking with one of our editors, actually, who's Portuguese in Portugal, and she was reading reports that they said it could take up to 72 hours to get back.
And Spain's, I don't even know what they're called, but it's basically the company that handles their electrical grid. They said, I think it's called Red Eléctrica. They said that it would take them between 6 and 10 hours. So then to hear that Portugal is 72 hours, it's just like
typical.
Oh, Portugal.
Hopefully they have misjudged that and it'll be much faster. But anyway, so that is huge news going on. Also, I just want to say, if you are watching us and you see us lightly swaying back and forth, we are out in the middle of the Atlantic, and today is a rougher day with the waves. It's not bad, but it's just rougher than it has been. So on the ship, we're kind of swaying back and forth right now.
Well, and to your point on that, we are currently actually between, kind of on the latitudinal line. Latitudinal? I don't know that word, actually.
I'm not even
I don't use
I don't know.
navigation terms very often. But we are between, we've actually just passed the Azores, and we are just north now of Madeira. So there's a little bit of Portuguese vibe there, and then we're also 1 hour behind Portugal's time zone. Although tonight we'll end up being
ahead,
or being on the same time zone.
Go to Portugal, and then we'll be going to Gibraltar and then to the south of Spain. So we're actually going to go 1 hour past Portugal.
Yeah,
I think we'll try to stay on Portuguese time at that point, because we've been back in the States for a couple weeks, and so we had that time change, and then we're slowly moving ahead in the water as we get back to Europe.
Yes.
So that's what's going on with us. But other than that, with the channel, we've still been putting videos out, of course. We've had interviews. We had Figueira de Foz, a city that I think has a lot of interest, and so it was important to feature and do a city guide on.
Yeah, and I want to thank you all very much. If you saw our post with the interview last week that we had with Virginia about her books and the book giveaway, thank you so much for typing giveaway in the description sections or the comment sections of any of that stuff. We've gotten everyone entered, and I think that name will get pulled pretty soon.
In the next couple days. I guess it could be delayed a little bit if depending on this how this power outage works out. So it's supposed to be May 1st. But we'll see. We might extend it a little bit. So if you haven't gotten it yet, go on to Instagram. And depending on when this comes out, Instagram, you can just type giveaway in the comment on that post, and you'll be entered to win the books that she has authored.
Yeah. Going back to the Figueira da Foz thing, we had a really good time making that video. Had a great time going back to the city and being able to shoot it, give it justice, because it is a great city. I've just been disappointed with how YouTube has dispersed it, has pushed it. Yeah. Because when I look in the analytics, people are enjoying the video. They're staying longer than average to watch the whole video, but the impressions are not getting surfaced to people. That or people just aren't clicking on it at the normal rate that they are. So if you haven't seen that video about Figueira da Foz, I do ask you just to click on that bad boy and watch it and
enjoy it's out there. Maybe you haven't even been served it, so you might have to go to our channel to actually see. But sometimes you will tell us, oh, we haven't seen you post for a while. And we consistently post on the weekends, generally on Saturdays on our main channel. So if you don't see it, it's probably there. You might just have to go to our channel to see what's posted. It just might not get served to you.
Correct. Two of the things you probably don't know about is I made appearances on other podcasts over the past couple weeks, and both of those now are out. We'll put a link in the description section of this or in the show notes, depending on how you're consuming it, so that you can check those out. Both of those podcasts were different pieces of content than we normally do and stuff that we normally talk about. I mean, there is some crossover because I'm being asked questions about Portugal, but there are some topics that I've never been asked on podcasts. So it was actually a lot of fun to be able to do this. I love when people have us on and we don't say we don't get asked the same questions. Yeah. So this is different. This is something that you haven't really seen us talk about.
Great. Okay, so we have that, and then, let's just go ahead and talk about the interview and jump into it. Yeah. So we talked to John today about life in Lisbon, which is always a good one, a good update. We've had him on the podcast before, so let's see what's going on, because he's been here now for several years, can apply for citizenship with his family soon, and so he's been in Lisbon for quite a while, so he's seen a lot of changes. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, and his family's been through a lot of changes. Mm-hmm. So when you consider someone being in a place for 3, 4, 5 years, which he's coming up on year 5. If not, actually, he's already passed it, I think, at this point. Mm-hmm. But what happens is, especially if they're at a point in life with kids, and their kids are moving from being preteens to teens, and those changes happen, it can also change the dynamic of what's happening at home and how you're processing living abroad. So I think John has been a great person for us to now touch base with again. The first interview we did with him was a couple years ago. So now we're kind of circling back. Is life still the same as when you first moved? How are you feeling? Have the kids adjusted? Or are they ready to go back to the U.S.? Because we've seen this with other families. Mm-hmm. We have seen that some of them are I'm European now, even though they've been in Europe just for a couple years, but they feel it, they internalize it. Whereas others are get me out of here. I want to go back to America.
This will be interesting with our daughter, since we moved to Portugal when she was 9 months old. So we visit the U.S. We've only done it twice. Now she's 5, but she very much so, I think, identifies with Portugal. So this will be also interesting for us as she grows up to see how it goes.
Yeah, I think she currently has blended both quite well. Mm-hmm. She's both proud of U.S. and Portugal, and recognizes whenever we see flags waving, whichever one they are, she calls it out. She loves it.
That's true. Okay, well, let's get to the interview with John.
All right, let's do it.
All right, but before we do that, let's talk about this week's sponsor, Green Ocean Global Advisors.
Yes, we always recommend, no matter where you are in the moving process, to get your finances in order. So that's in your home country and then the country that you're moving to.
And speaking about homes, what if you sell your house before leaving or do it after? What are the capital gains implications like? Well, a financial advisor will be able to walk you through this type of thing.
And what about distributions? Maybe you have a 401k or a pension and you need to figure out how much you should be drawing from for the lifestyle that you're going to have.
Now, you can use this link in the description section below to talk to John from Green Ocean Global Advisors to see if he's a fit for you. You'll have a free 15-minute consultation just for being an Expats Everywhere listener. So you can use that to get your free 15 minutes. Click the link in the description section below. Now, on to the show.
Hey, John, welcome back. We often get criticized for not catching up with guests and seeing how life progresses for them. So, in this episode today, I wanted to bring you back in so we could talk about how things have been going for you, what life has been like since you moved here, and just get caught up on all that, because we did have an episode where we dug deep on your personal experience moving to Portugal, and that was put out well over a year ago. And that kind of captured your first 3-4 years of living here, and now we're into year 5 of being in Portugal. Let's talk about it. How have things changed for life? What's going on in your life right now, man?
Well, man, I struggle to come up with something to say because it's like it's just normal now. Okay.
Okay.
Like 5 years into being anywhere, it's a bit of, wherever you go, there you are.
Mm,
I guess, hearing you say year 5 just reminds me that like we're going to be up for citizenship soon.
yeah.
So hooray. And my language skills are definitely getting there. I
Mm,
almost feel totally native now, with both the way that I talk and the way that I think like a Portuguese. So it's all kind of gelling, like in the initial thrust, you feel like there's all this excitement and all this newness. And now I'm like having some boring days, which is nice.
Boring days sitting at a cafe drinking aguardente, that type of thing.
Not at all. I can't wait till that happens, man. No, man, I'm working nonstop.
Okay.
To be totally brutally honest, the Trump ascendancy, it really did kick off a bit of a professional firestorm. And
Okay.
so it's a busy time. It's a busy time professionally. So
Okay.
personal, all good, all dialed in.
Yeah.
Um, my kids are going to be going into, gosh, I guess I have a high schooler now, and
Mm.
Portuguese high school, and yeah, everybody's just kind of clicking along now, which is what we want, right? That's life.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so to give the listener some context, you moved here with your family, and you still work. You actually had just kind of started a new business,
Mhm.
financial management company, and there were some life changes that happened kind of soon after you arrived in terms of what was happening with your family, what was happening with your situation here in Portugal. Can you quickly catch us up to speed on that stuff, and then we can kind of discuss what the last year or so has been like?
Mm. Yeah, so we moved here, right before the pandemic hit. If anybody has, got to know me at all from listening to your other podcast or watching one of your videos, I just kind of lost my job,
Mm,
honestly, because I was working for a big U.S. financial firm, and I said, pretty please, can you keep me on, and I can just keep being your European bureau? They said no. So I said, oh, well, why don't we just start a company in a foreign
mm,
country and, move our family's life and existence here? And so that was lots of magic that transformed our life. And so, yeah, so we went through that whole experience of reacclimating to a totally different lifestyle. Um, which we should point out is better, I think, if you have a family. I have a philosophy around this is like I help a lot of families move here and
mm.
individuals move here. And families can be a beautiful thing because they sort of create a little social envelope that you can bring along with you.
Yeah.
And that's how it's been. Like our little micro community has now sort of established ties in with the fabric of our local community, our schools, I have a lot of professional colleagues that I do collaborations with, etc. Right. So it's just like grafting a plant into a new pot. We're developing our roots. And they're pretty firm at this point in time. It's awesome.
Okay. And you didn't move with the intention of like transplanting your life from the US to Portugal. Like that wasn't the intention. It was to start something fresh and new. Is that
No,
right?
no, I had no idea. I got kind of remember that first video was the
Yeah.
title was so provocative was I wasn't sure I wanted to do this, and it was
Yeah.
true. I wasn't really sure I wanted all that this is. But life often throws you opportunities that are dressed up in overalls. It's work, right? So
Mm.
I kind of pivoted and went, well, let's be European now. And it was really hard.
Okay. How old were the kids when you moved, and then how old are they now?
Man, they were babies. I was just looking at some of those photos, I have a 14-year-old is my oldest,
Okay.
and she was then 9.
9. Yeah.
9-year-olds don't look like 14-year-olds, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then my youngest, she is, here I'm at my desk. So we've got their pictures. And so
There we
my
go.
youngest, Tabby.
For those that can see the video, if you're not watching on YouTube, maybe consider popping over to YouTube to check this video out.
Yeah.
Nice.
So these kids, this was a photo from 2 years ago. My youngest girl, she's now 10. She was like a 5-year-old, right? And 5-year-olds,
totally different people.
What's that?
They're totally different people, like a 5-year-old to a 10-year-old.
But the 5-year-olds have just graduated out of that little bucket you carry babies around in and just set them places, right? So how old is your Sia is what now? Like 8,
5.
9?
No, 5. 5. Yeah, 5.
5. Yes,
Yeah.
my friend. 5-year-olds are wonderful. They still require a lot of hands-on, but they don't have like the really distinctly like mature social situation going on, right?
We're experiencing it now.
You're experiencing the emergence of the ego. So like they have had to kind of develop that persona in the context of this, which has been really amazing to see unfold because that their childhood is a distinctly different childhood. Like there's a lot of people who call it the sort of the third rail, the third culture. It's a third culture experience because they're not their mother land. They're not really Portuguese.
Yep.
So we've got this interesting sort of blended effect going on. So it's pretty cool.
TCK is the acronym for that. Third culture kids.
The third culture
TCKs.
Kids. Yeah.
Yeah. Kalie and I, in our old line of work, we met a lot of TCKs because we were international school teachers. So quite used to that dynamic. Okay. So was there anyone in the family then over the past 4 or 5 years that has had the desire to move back to the US?
Nope.
No.
Not at all.
What do you attribute that to?
I don't know. Josh, life is a funny thing. You get, if you get busy, right? Like when I don't know, when I meet new clients, for example, like I give them this little questionnaire. On the first page, there's this little quote that I love that says, in order to discover new shores, you have to be willing to let go of the old ones. And we just let go of the old life. And that required us getting focused on something, right? We weren't running from something. We had all these things that we wanted to focus on. And so like in the winter, instead of going to Lake Tahoe to do a ski trip, then we're thinking, well, maybe we go to Andorra, and in the summer, we've got loads of activities from sailing classes to visiting the rest of Europe to whatever, right? And my new work is all consuming. So it's that. It's like when you're doing things with your day to day, that's why I feel like scared for retirees sometimes. Some of the times I can hear it in their voice if I'm working with somebody and they're like, I'm like, what are you doing? Well, they don't know. I know what I'm doing. Like, because once again, having that family dynamic in place, I guess I'm going to have to go back on my words because like I didn't totally change. I could say I totally changed, but we were living in our family pod. And so, I mean, think about that. The pandemic actually almost reinforced that and made it so that like we were in our pod and then we were in our pod and now we're sort of like, we're fine fleshing out into our new life. It's interesting. So, yeah.
So you bring up retirees, which I think is important for me to touch on because I hope that there's something for everyone in this episode, as we will talk more about the kids, and we don't often discuss on the channel or the podcast too much about families, because most of our listeners don't have families. Most of our listeners are approaching retirement or retired or have kids who are adults. So a lot of that type of content doesn't apply, but focusing in on retirees, what are some things that could help a retiree adapt to living in Portugal, despite not having that family unit, that family envelope, I think is what you called it, that social envelope? Do you have any, have you seen any cases of clients that have adapted well, and what have they done?
Sure have. I can tell you what they shouldn't do is they should
Okay.
not go out and party all the time. Like I've
Okay.
literally had, there was this one lady who told me that she was just like, she met all these people at this bar and she was going to go out and party all the time. Like this is not a vacation. So you have to so the people that have been successful have been really seriously looking at their life going forward and going like, what is life going to look like in the next 5 years?
Yep.
It's not a nonstop party. No, and hangovers are not fun when you're 60 anyways. I was like, let's not do that. So they're finding farmers markets. They're getting enrolled in language classes. Like that's a dual purpose activity, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
because you're learning that language, you're getting to know people who are also in the same place as you. I mean, this isn't college, but it kind of is like you've just moved to this dorm and you've got to get out and just get involved in the basket weaving class at 4 p.m. Like, let's do a class together. So doing all your activities. So, I mean, younger people, you'd be surprised. Your audience, a lot of cool, dynamic young people with kids.
Sure.
But they've got to do the same thing. Is they've got to find things that they love to do, and that's, I guess that's always true. But you have to be a little bit more intentional, creative, figure out what you're about, and go see if you can keep doing that here.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say, at least from our perspective and those that we know kind of in our social circle, the difference between people in our stage of life and retirees is that because we have kids in school, there's an automatic social thing built in because, it's like, let's get the kids together for a play date, either after school or on the weekends or that type of thing. So it's easier for us to meet other people, whether it be foreigners or Portuguese. And we don't have to go out of our way as much as I think maybe a retiree or even a single person that's moved here has.
You know what happened the other day? I got added into this board game group because I like to play board games sometimes on the weekends. And so this friend of mine was like, "You want to join my group?" And I got added in, and like it became immediately like there's this long WhatsApp group thread going on, right? And I saw all this playing out, and I'm like, "Oh my God, these guys, like this is a whole social scene that I don't have time for." I just unsubscribed yesterday. I felt like such a lurker. I was like, "Oh my God, my life's busy." Like, but these guys have done what I just talked about is they found a crowd of people, right? They're like exchanging like recipes and dentist recommendations and stuff. And that's great for them. But a lot of them also seemed single. I don't know how I could tell, but I could tell that there was a lot of folks that seemed to want to mingle in another way. And I was just like, man, this is not probably my vibe. So it's interesting. So that's what you do is you find your your rhythm.
Yeah. You're someone who stays connected to like what's happening in current events, both back in the US, but also in Portugal. What are some things that you've seen, or have there been things that you've seen that have changed over the past few years of living here on the Portugal side of things?
Well, have you noticed that the culture, no, not the culture, the society has been really having to change quickly to adapt to all the attention that Portugal's gotten? I think it's been happening. And what I mean is it's like there is like this gentrification factor, especially in Lisbon. So I live in Lisbon, Portugal.
Yeah.
right? And Porto maybe is similar to this, is like there's a bit of a housing crisis that's been becoming more and more.
Brewing,
Yeah, it's brewing.
ramping up. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like people are trying to figure out like how they feel about that. Some people are very optimistic. Others are a little wary that like their cultures may be getting, a little bit infiltrated in a way.
What
I
are they
mean, maybe it's
optimistic about?
well, they're the younger people are generally optimistic about like the opportunity that it represents. So
Okay.
I'm a board game fanatic, actually. So even though I don't want to hang out with the single guys, I've got this crew that I hang out with on Sundays sometimes, and they're all Portuguese. And
Okay.
like the Portuguese professionals, like when they're networking with me, they're like very interested and excited about like, what am I trying to do here? Because it's
Mm,
still novel. And
mm.
they seem to appreciate that we are trying to make a go of it and adapt. I mean, because that's what I bring to the social dynamic. I'm like, I'm trying to adapt and adjust. And they're like, that's really cool. You should come to our networking events and you should get, you know, deeper into, well, the Portuguese investment world is where I'm active. And so they're welcoming. They're bringing us in. And that seems like an optimistic thing. Like they're not closing ranks. I've experienced that before in the past at times in my life, and they're not doing that. They're very,
Okay.
yeah, they're waving us in. So it's very interesting.
What's the age demographic of this group that you're hanging out with?
Mm. Well, it is mainly people. Well, it's actually all ages. I hang out with.
It is.
There's
Okay.
been college students. There's, college professors. There's tech professionals. There's a hedge fund manager. So yeah, I mean, there's all the different flavors of the rainbow, different kinds of characters that you could just as well meet in anywhere USA.
Okay. Because I'm really curious about this idea that young people are optimistic and encouraged by what's happening. Because I think there's a narrative out there that young people feel like they're never going to be homeowners because of the way that prices have increased. So, I mean, are these two separate things, or can a young person both be pessimistic about the housing prices yet optimistic about their future opportunities living in Portugal? Because Portugal has a brain drain. They have many young people that get a
Yeah.
university degree and go abroad because they can make more money.
Well, I mean, I'm getting a skewed view, of course,
Okay.
right? Like I am getting a perspective from like the people I'm finding. In psychology they call this the self-selection bias, right?
Yep.
Like everybody that shows up for an experimental psychology is like a 20-year-old college student, not representative. So I'm
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm in my nerd quest hobby world, and I'm finding all these folks. But yeah, like when I do OLX transactions, I meet a whole other range of folks. OLX, for people that don't know, is like the Craigslist, right?
Hmm.
Like I love to go find bargains online. And I meet like a lot of other folks who are a little bit more plain Jane every day. And among that, I do socialize. And there is more of what you're talking about. And it's kind of Portuguese in a way. Like they have the
Mm.
silt ads, like things haven't really worked out for us. Will they? Probably not. Like there is a bit of a pessimism among the broader culture.
Okay.
So I'm not a Pollyanna by any means. Yeah.
and that's been brewing, or okay, or did it exist like as soon as you arrived and you kind of saw this dynamic playing out?
Oh, Josh, this has been brewing well before you and I came on the scene.
Right.
Right. So in
Right.
Portugal,
It's
what
just
did
a
they?
part of. Yeah. Go ahead.
They
Go
peaked in
ahead.
what, like the 1500s? Like they
Yeah.
peaked before the United States was a thing. So
Mm.
and then they went through socialism, or through their dictatorship rather.
Mm.
And so there's a weird feeling of like they're a new republic. One Portuguese guy was explaining this to me because I was asking him, and he said, "You have to remember, we're a younger democracy than you are. Like
Mm.
we're a younger republic than you are. So we're very schizophrenic. There's like extremely optimistic folks who are like, yeah, let's go, new opportunity. But they're like juxtaposed with the old guard who are very much like, pois é, it's not going to change. So why would you try to talk about it even if you think it's not going to? And that's in their DNA. You know,
Yeah.
it's not American. It's a distinctly European and even more so Portuguese sort of sentiment. Fascinating.
It is fascinating. Okay, so you mentioned to the audience that you live in Lisbon, as you kind of preface what you were going to say. What are things like in Lisbon? I feel like being in Porto and looking at Lisbon, there has been a very quick shift since we arrived in 2020, like late 2020. There's been a quick shift of just how much investment has gone in, just how quickly housing prices have risen, just how quickly the city has gotten busy and almost
Yeah.
overrun by tourists. What are your
Hmm.
thoughts? Do you see that? Do you feel like it's overblown by the media?
Do they come up there to Porto as much? I've only been to Porto like a couple times. Like during the summer, is it thick with people like Disneyland level?
In So our downtown or historic city center is rather small,
Hmm.
and we do get like a lot of tourists during peak season.
Yeah.
There's never really an off season here, but there's definitely a peak season during the summer where it's just like rammed with people.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
it doesn't take that many people because it's such a small
I,
downtown,
I
right?
mean, I don't think so. No, I mean,
Yeah.
there's not a whole lot of area that people can cover. So in Porto, they would maybe start around Trindade Station, which is the central metro station where all the lines connect,
Mhm.
and then they would go south from there, and kind of, let's say, southeast from there would be Bullion Market, which is the city market. It's been open for a year and a half, 2 years maybe. Revitalized market, absolutely beautiful now. Then you have a famous shopping street, and then everything starts to flow downhill towards the Ribeira, which
Right.
is where you get the iconic views of the bridges and the Douro River, and the other side, which is Vila Nova de Gaia. So it's all concentrated in that area, but
Mm.
most of the people live above that, north of
Hmm.
that. I shouldn't
Right.
say most people live. Obviously, there's people that live everywhere in the city center, but the average experience for many people would be outside of this tourist center.
Yeah, that's where the Portuguese, like the true densely populated regions are up there.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
the lower parts of Airbnb. You know,
if you like really compare the way the city's structured to like a comparative like US cities, like you have to look at like the East Coast, like around New York, where you find like, original construction, and it's like really tight, right? Because it wasn't constructed around cars and it wasn't constructed around like highly dense population. So that's like Portugal, that's Lisbon too. And
yeah.
so like it feels like really now it doesn't take much to make it feel very overrun. And so that's, I think, what's been happening. Yes, there's lots of tourists, but there were lots of tourists when I got here 5 years ago. I remember like walking down, down in Baixo Chiado and thinking like, oh my God, this feels like Disneyland. That's the first time I
Yeah.
noticed it felt like Disneyland in the summer. And so I just avoid all that now. But I also live in San Francisco, and I lived there for like 20 years. And I have seen this thing happen when the money truck backs up. It's what my wife and I always say. Like that money
Yeah.
truck backs up and dumps onto the place, and it has good and bad effects. So the good is, yeah, they're improving the infrastructure, and that can only be good for the most part, actually. Ecologically, I don't know. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, it is definitely something everyone is trying to adapt to.
Oh,
Yeah,
and
it's a
what's the
very
downside?
well, downside, of course, is, just like any boom town, like again, San Francisco is a great example. Like there's a lot of grifting that goes on, right? Because there's just a lot of opportunity, and it just attracts a lot of folks that are maybe trying to like do tons of real estate deals. Like real estate is a bit of a cesspool because like it's not transparent at all in the way that it is in the US. So like unreal prices. I met a prospective client yesterday who said that she had been basically swindled. She was sold a collection of buildings, like 3 buildings, for what she thought was a pretty good deal for 2 million euros, right? But then she found out that it hadn't been zoned properly for reconstruction at all, and that the Câmara Municipal was not going to allow it. So then she was up a creek, and it was like worth 250,000 euros because they were like, yeah, they were disasters. They were like in
Oh
shambles.
my gosh.
And she was like, look at the bones of these buildings, but like the foundation was all messed up. It was like between two sort of minor tributary rivers. And then like she saw all the structural issues and got a seismic survey done. I mean, she should have done probably some more homework, but actually the people that sold it to her, she said, and this is just a story, right? There's horror stories, but she said they basically had sort of like colluded with the neighbors. And so the neighbors were her primary source of information. She went and investigated with them. Is this all kosher? And they said, oh, yeah. And then there was an architect that they had colluded with, and the architect was telling them that it was probably going to be fine too. So she had been led to believe all of this. And that seems like because there's American money coming, and so, you think about like the mindset of somebody who maybe is inside of a culture where opportunity has been really, really rare. And so there's a bit of a scarcity mindset of like, there's all this opportunity coming from all these fat, these fat and wealthy foreigners. So I could see where that would happen. I could see both sides of it, unfortunately, so that's unfortunate. But I think that you're always going to see things like that. It happened in San Francisco. There was a lot of booming happening during the .com era. And there was this issue with people having unwarranted like extra rooms in the house.
Okay.
And people wouldn't be honest about it. And there's so much money coming in that like people are just trying to get, opportunities. So that's
and
unfortunate.
This is happening on both among both foreigners and Portuguese, or is it mainly Portuguese who are trying to take advantage of foreigners in this regard?
I can't speak to the Portuguese. Probably, they'd probably be a little bit more wise to it.
Okay.
Like when you can't. I mean, this is a problem when you are a foreigner, is like you don't know, the sort of the hidden subtext that's going on around you oftentimes, and that's what we're all kind of having to get wise to. And
well, I mean, as you've learned more about the culture, like what are some things you've picked up on that you'd like to warn us about?
Well, gosh. Okay. So if we're still being listened to and our perspective and what we do, I'm a financial advisor. I meet a lot of folks who are talking to, tax professionals of various kinds. And it's been my experience that a lot of tax professionals are sort of struggling to also capture this opportunity. And in so doing, they don't always do all their homework so that they can understand properly what the tax situation is for Americans.
Okay.
And they give advice that is a little bit, shall we say, ambiguous. And maybe they tell people what they sense that they want to hear. And then, like, as we go further along, they either ghost you or they don't stand behind what they had originally told you. And that can be a problem for Americans because American taxes are like, you think what you will about America right now, but the IRS is, they're a branch of the executive. They're part of the executive branch. They got Jimmy Hoffa. They will get you, and they will get a proper accounting. That's where that word comes from, at least in our context. Portuguese are not the same. Like they can tell you stuff, and then they can kind of fade away, and there isn't really much accountability for getting bad advice. And so I've had to kiss a lot of frogs in my efforts to try to find good advice. And that feels like a very culturally different thing. Like a CPA in the United States would never tell you something unless they really were sure. And they try to get to certainty faster. Whereas here, they're a little bit more like, yeah, I think that'll work. And yeah, let's just go ahead and set this plan in motion with whatever tax plan that you create with them.
Mm.
And then you go along and you'll find them sort of like softly sort of pulling away or not being able to support you with the sort of goody dads security that you want.
Yeah.
So it's weird. It was unexpected. So that's something I'll
Are
look
there
out for.
other cultural things that you can think of that you've learned over the past 5 years that you could warn us about?
Do you have a lot of Portuguese friends?
Fair amount.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say a lot, but yeah.
Do you meet them in the context of like sporting activities? Because I know you're a big sports guy.
Mainly.
I need to get into sports, dude. Because it's hard to make friends because they're also very like family centric. Like their family networks are so thick that like if you try to set a date with a Portuguese friend, they'll be like they're kind of elusive. Like they're not going to like welcome you to their house easily. Like, and again, I think we've talked about this. I'm not sure if that's just a cultural thing or, it's just hard when there's a language barrier that you're not traversing effectively. So it's been very hard to make lots of Portuguese friends. But
we only have 2 Portuguese friends that don't speak English.
Yeah.
So I mean, I would say most of the time we operate in English because it's as a group we can operate faster, more efficient, deeper. Like the relationship goes deeper because we can speak in English.
Listen.
So
yeah.
So like this evening actually, one of our Portuguese friends is coming over for dinner. We're doing taco night because I asked him. I was like, Have you had like American style tacos? He's like, love them. He used to live in the States. He's like, I love them. Like, let's do it. So we're doing that tonight. And then there's another friend of ours that doesn't speak English. Like we just operate in Portuguese. He and his wife, his wife actually knows French better than English, but she can speak English quite well. But whenever we're together, we operate in Portuguese, and they have a kid. So sometimes we spend time with them. We'll go hang out with them. But oftentimes, it's not like we get invited in the home per se.
Yeah.
It's hard to pin them down to like, hey, let's do this at this time. It's much more impromptu with them. So
I don't know. What are you going to do? Like, I don't remember when I was, you just keep trying. You just keep throwing it out there. What we're talking about here, trying to find the downsides, it's hard because mostly my life is filled with upsides. So that's, there's been some challenges, but for the most part, it's just like, there's so many good things going on. I can't think of any other gotchas, unfortunately.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's fine. I'd actually like to know a little bit more about those challenges. So your first couple of years were challenging because work things had changed for your wife. You were trying to grow this business, but now as you kind of enter into a period where things are going well, you've established yourself professionally, you've brought more people around you professionally to support you. Although I don't think that it's necessarily bought you time back because you just keep getting more and more clients. What are some things that have changed? What are some challenges that you've been hit with kind of between years 3 and 5?
What's the challenges? I don't know. I've had a lot of car repair. I don't know. It's it's not so much that I've had challenges. It's just I've had to be creative about what this next segment of my life is going to be, because I was just kind of going under the assumption that I would just keep pedaling up the same hill when I was in the United States. I had a groove going, and so it can feel a little fatiguing sometimes because it's evil to like figure out like what my 5-year, 10-year, 20-year is going to be.
Okay.
Just because I have to be so much more creative than I think that I had to be before. Like my family was around me back in the United States, so they were helping me to kind of like come up with ideas for things to do in our life. This is kind of happening next. Then we're going here. Like the big weird thing with being an expat, you guys are probably pros at this because you've been bouncing around, is just making sure that like what your life's central thesis is. What are we about here? What are we doing? right? Because like when you're just surrounded by your countrymen, we're just doing this. Even like in this moment right now, we're trying to navigate this weird identity crisis that our change in political leadership has provoked. But we're doing it together as Americans. And when you like are out on the frontier, it's a frontier sort of vibe that you have. We're like, what are we doing?
You're alone.
Yeah, we're kind of
or
alone.
more alone, more isolated. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why I love talking to you, because you're kind of on the same, you're on that same wave right now. And so you have to be a little bit more intentional, a little bit more like, who am I? What am I doing? And that puts pressure on a person, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I would say a big thing that Kalie and I have done, and this is something that I wish I could say the word constantly remind ourselves of, but it periodically is probably a better word for it. We keep our why out in front of us, like, why are we doing this? Why, like, what's the big kind of why that we're doing all of this? And I think for us, that's important. And that's the advice we give to others when they're going through a bit of struggles. They're having a hard time adapting. Why did you do it? Like, is your why still there? Are those the reasons that you're still in that place? Because if you lose your why, or your why isn't there in the place that you're living, is it somewhere else? Is it time to go somewhere else? And I think that's kind of where we're expats, in a sense, where it's not that we've fully moved to a place and this is where we're going to spend the rest of our life, because we didn't feel like that in the US. We got into our 20s and we were like, there's more to this world. I don't think that this is the place. And I don't know if there's ever going to be a final place, you know? So we just keep that why out in front of us, and it's kind of just taken us along this journey across 5 countries, 6 countries.
You didn't say what your why was, man. What is it? Do you have like a mission statement that you have printed out on the you put it on the refrigerator there?
No. I mean, we don't. So there's a why for different kind of buckets of our life, right? There's a why we're doing something for our personal life, our travel goals, our spiritual life, our financial life, our professional life. So I mean that's what I mean. Like the overarching
I didn't mean to
why.
corner you. It's
No, not at
now.
all.
It's a great.
Not at all.
It's a great point. Yeah.
Not at all. The overarching why, I think, if I were to try to like boil it all down, is for the adventure, for kind of the adventure / journey of it all. Because all of those things, it's like there's this movement, there's this progression that we enjoy. We don't like standing still. And I think that's important for us. But no, in each kind of individual bucket or section of our life, there's a why we're doing certain things, because you said you have to be intentional. And that's it. Like to hit certain objectives or to do the thing that you're trying to do, intentionality is important.
Totally.
If you're not intentional, then you may hit it, you may not, but you literally like don't have any sort of onus or control or whatever on that thing. So really, how important is it to you if you don't take ownership of it and like do things,
Yeah. And so that's like the whole thing of it is like the real challenge with this is like, I mean, all throughout my life is like, yeah, you got to be like really wanting to do stuff. I went to college and I went, why am I doing college? And you constantly have to sort of like rejigger that as you go along. But as expats, you will definitely get punched in the stomach and have the wind knocked out of you if you don't have a strong sense of, a point on the horizon that you're moving towards, because other people aren't going to supply it to you as much.
No, exactly.
And that's the challenge. Not to be too woo-woo with it, but that's where I have the most challenge sometimes. So like, what are we going to do this year and why? What are we doing? College is coming up, right? And I'm trying to figure out like what the college experience is going to look like for my daughter. And so like, that's the next challenge is helping the kids to launch in the context of all this, right? Because I just went to the same college that my dad went to, and that made it a little bit easier for me to pick. But now it's like, should we go to Amsterdam? Should we go to Ireland? Maybe we ought to consider going further east. No, just kidding. That looks hard. Eastern Europe is still like a big sort of fuzzy part of the map for me. I don't know if you spent time there, but yeah. So
let me ask you this, because we haven't actually touched much on the kids. How has life changed for them? Like how has their life changed, and then how has being a parent in the midst of all this, in the context of living here in Portugal, changed?
They're like, weirdly having the same experience that I think they might have anywhere. Like, we're having birthday parties.
Mm-hmm.
There's bullies, right? Daddy, like this girl really says all this nasty, mean stuff to me, Dad. Like homework is hard. I mean, homework is the hardest. I really hate that I have to help Alex, my son, with all this reading comprehension. Because reading comprehension in English is a little challenging. But when you're reading like the Epic of Gilgamesh in Portuguese and having to help him to like find the answers.
Yikes.
Like, sorry, but whoa. Like last weekend, we spent like 2 hours reading this book, the Aeneid, which is like an ancient Greek myth. And like the vocabulary is just, I'm sorry. Like, I don't know. Like, why did he go to the Elysian Fields to communicate with his father in the middle of this battle with this headless, like, God? Like, it's all, it's very hard to help people with reading comprehension. So that's what they struggle with is it's a lot of like, I want to excel in school, but how much harder am I going to have to work if it's going to be in a second language? Because we're not speaking Portuguese in the home. So that has been actually a huge challenge for all of us, is like we have to allocate a lot more time to academic success. In that context, something you might have to come up against yourself. Although your Portuguese might be further along because you have a 5-year-old. So, it's interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah. Because academic struggles in your native language are very much a thing. Like you have this whole like set of academic challenges. But like if you're thinking like my daughter that's going to college soon, she switched over to the Cambridge methodology because it's all English based, and because she wants to get straight A's. And like thinking about getting straight A's when you're like, a good but never excellent communicator in a second language, it's a lot. It's a lot to ask a person.
And she had to pick up Portuguese at a little bit later in her adolescence, I guess. So that's more challenging. Whereas when they start at a younger level and the base is obviously less technical, easier Portuguese, they kind of grow into it. But yeah, I mean, throwing a kid into it like middle school age as they're coming into high school, and having them go through subject material in that foreign language or second language, man, that's hard.
Right.
I mean, I know that based on me being a teacher in a international school where we would have kids from Korea, Japan, not knowing English, having to do their studies in English, and like how long the adaptation process takes.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know that. You were doing teaching?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. So so you've seen that. I mean, I taught some language classes too, but like not a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. So Kalie was an ESL teacher. So she, was English as a second language in this international school. So she would actually see these students that were like proper struggling with this whole dynamic. And she would be an additional support to them. I was a physical education teacher. Now, for primary school, there's hardly any academic work involved. Hardly any. There's some health components. However, middle school and high school, it's almost like 60-40 between, what you do physically and then what you can do mentally, what health wise, and then also just like tactics and things like that. You have to be able to like talk about these things like head knowledge. Exactly. And if you don't have the vocab
and the communication skills, you're going to struggle and you're going to feel it. So, I mean, while I'm seeing a subject material in health, which is easier, let's say, than the kid trying to do algebra, or not even algebra, that's probably a bad example because numbers are a little easier. Let's say economics or history or whatever. It's hard. Right. It's hard for a kid.
Yeah.
And it's hard for a parent because the parent's got to support the kid and be empathetic and understand that, like you're doing something that's already difficult in your own language, right? It already takes effort, but then there's this double effort because you're having to close the language gap.
Did you play volley or did you play dodgeball? I'm just still laughing at the image of Josh, the gym teacher.
Dodgeball, I don't know if
my son hates dodgeball.
I don't know if it's not played in the States, but yeah, we definitely brought it back to the school that we taught at. It wasn't played before I arrived, but there were a couple of us PE teachers. We were like, there's nothing wrong with it. Like, let's give it a go. And it fit our curriculum. So we used it as one of the sports to teach the standards.
It brought out the bullying dynamics. My son had this whole thing with dodgeball last year where like the bully was just nailing people. And
sure.
I laugh about it now, but he would like try to avoid it because it happened at the end of the day. And he was like, come on, Dad, let's go. I don't want to play dodgeball. Duarte is gonna nail me. He always nails me. It's just like, dude, settle down. But he's very ADHD. And if your child is neuroatypical at all, then that actually just layers on another component to it. Because, not to suggest that like the ordinary child will not have challenges because they do. But like the neuroatypical child who has a hard time focusing, man, his challenges with learning, especially, again, literature in that foreign language, it's very hard because you really have to focus. You really have got to be able to screw up your attention. And it's hard for the guy because he's more physical, which is fine because Portugal loves sporting. He excels. You'd find him normal. The gym teacher's always like, no, he's a great guy. He comes, he's ready. He hates dodgeball for some reason, but everything else is good.
That's awesome.
School's always going to bring challenge,
Yeah.
Especially my 14-year-old girl, social. Right? Because like they drink at a younger age here. And even though they're not supposed to at parties, she's like, some people brought some wine and beer. And I'm like, 14. So I feel like that's par for the course. Like we all.
How do you navigate that?
I have been telling her that I trust her.
Okay. And how's that been going? Like
it seems fine. I mean, we have a very, I think, very healthy, coherent, cohesive family. So we have good communication. So it's going okay. And I've always held that like the European way to handle this is I think healthier, right?
Sure.
Because they don't have to wait until they're 21 to allegedly experience drinking. I mean, I know a lot of kids they take the shortcut there, but there's less binge drinking. We see a lot of studies that show this, that like Europeans don't binge drink the way that American college students do, because they've just been drinking beer and wine, and it's like, fine, I'll drink it with my dinner, but they don't think about drinking to excess as much as we do, or the British do, actually. The British are known to have that drinking culture as well.
Yeah, for sure.
I've entirely steered clear of it. I've had a few boozy nights myself in my life, of course, but
sure.
But the kids are, the 14-year-old, she's navigating it well. So to be continued on that.
And we will, John. And we really appreciate your time and touching base with us on how things have been going over the past year or so. And I really encourage people to go back and listen to the first episodes that we've done, because we've done a few with you now, but one specifically, and I'll put the link in the description section so people can hear kind of how your first 3 years, three and a half years was, and then compared to things in life right now, because it honestly sounds like you've hit homeostasis in terms of how well you've adapted to Portugal. And then it's just the professional hustle that's ramped up, which is exciting,
Pretty cool. It's been cool. I mean, a lot of people having a great time with this. But then I get to support people too. It's my secret way of, of fitting into a community that's forming up.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your support with the podcast as well. Our partnership has been huge in supporting our content creation. And this is the John that we continue to reference when we say John McNertney with Green Ocean is here to support you if you're looking to do something in terms of financially moving money, figuring out, where money should go. And if you're managing your money correctly, John can help assist with that. And we appreciate you. Yeah, we appreciate you giving us that link for the 15-minute free call because time is valuable, and the fact that you recognize our audience members, we do appreciate it.
Yep. Super social guy. I always have been. Like when I was a kid, I was going to church every weekend and helping out with various things. Nowadays, I kind of think this job gives me a lot. Like those 15-minute, those free conversations are fun sometimes. Like, yeah, people don't even need me really.
Speed dating.
Like, sometimes. Exactly. Hello. So anyways, well, thank you again. Also too, Josh, you and Kalie have become friends. I really enjoy the vibe that you've brought. I've met a lot of your folks, your Expats Everywhere community, and they're just thrilled that they have sort of they've got you guys to sort of draft behind and take notes with, because it can be scary. This whole project, we make it sound like fun because it is, but it can be scary too. So it's really cool that you're, letting your flag fly. I think a lot of people appreciate that.
Cheers, man. Appreciate hearing that. Mm-hmm. Take care, brother. Talk to you later.
All right. You too. Be well. Hi to Kalie.
Will do. Ciao.